The following is a production of Stevenson Media. Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, please be seated. Thank you so much. My fellow Houstonians, welcome to this Houston Sports State of the Union address for the week of August 4th. I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson. As always, there are a million different things you could be doing this evening, but you chose to spend a little bit of time with me, and I appreciate it. Guys, today, in honor of Marvel and Disney's blockbuster hit, Deadpool and Wolverine, which I did see last week, I want to celebrate those who have given maximum effort. The Houston Texans have officially a Hall of Fame inductee. Andre Johnson is in the Hall of Fame because he gave maximum effort. His speech was very on brand with Dre. We'll dive into that, and we'll look at the Hall of Fame game itself, and we will look ahead to the upcoming preseason game against the Steelers. The Houston Astros responded to the moves that their division rivals made. Did Dana Brown use maximum effort? Well, we'll talk about that. Did he acquire that piece that we were talking about earlier in our previous episode that would put the Astros over the top? And I want to praise all of you for your maximum effort. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know, I have submitted the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast to the ESPN Rock the Mic competition, and all of you have pulled up and showed out. Thanks to you guys, I am currently in the lead as far as views and likes go on the current round of videos. If I remain in the lead, or if I am at least in the top three, then I will be an automatic bid to get to the next round in that competition. If you guys don't know, the winner of that competition will have their podcast produced by ESPN Houston from September all the way through February. What an amazing thing that would be to be able to continue to talk Houston sports, celebrate Houston sports, not only with you, but with hopefully an even larger audience by using the platform of ESPN. So I want to let you guys know, I'm going to keep it real with you, man. I want to win real bad. And the fact that I'm ahead right now is exciting, but I want to keep it going. So you guys, please keep watching, keep sharing, keep hitting like, and I would love to do this show with an even bigger audience. I appreciate you guys so much, man. It's really humbling to think about the fact that you guys have showed up the way that you have. I plan to get up in this piece, man. I want to bust through like the Kool-Aid man. I may be 40 years old, but it's never too late to chase your dreams. And what a dream come true to be able to share and celebrate Houston sports on that platform. And so I thank you guys for being here. I want to remind you really quick of the ways you can support the show. One of them you are doing already. You are listening, you are watching, hopefully you're sharing with your friends and family, and hopefully you guys have hit follow, like, and subscribe wherever you enjoy listening to the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. You can either listen or watch. I have links in the description to all of the listening platforms, or you can watch on YouTube, you can watch on Facebook, you can watch on Twitch, or you can watch on X. Also in the description of this video, you will see a link to my tip jar. There's also, if you're watching the video, a QR code right here in the lower corner. Anything you guys leave to me in that tip jar will go back into the show to continue bringing you the content that I bring. If you give me a donation of $50 or more, then you will get a Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt, which I am not wearing today. I'm actually rocking my Houston Texan shirt because if you guys don't know, about 13 seconds before I started this show, I was on the Chopping It Up with P. Scott podcast, and he wanted to talk about a little bit of Houston Texans, a little bit of Houston sports, and you guys know I'm all about that. I love doing it. So I gave it maximum effort on the Chopping It Up with P. Scott podcast as well. In the description, you'll also find affiliate links for Houston sports fan gear, and you will find affiliate links for the equipment I am using to bring you this lovely show. Anytime you guys purchase any of the equipment or the Houston sports fan gear using my link, I will get a little bit of change from that. And I always appreciate those are the ways you can support financially. Lastly, if you would like to do sponsorship, I'm still looking for one more sponsor. I hope that I'll be able to continue those relationships if and when possibly this podcast is on ESPN Houston. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but if you are interested in sponsoring the show and me representing your business, I would love to talk to you about it. You can email me at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. Those are all the ways you can support the show. Right now, you're here, you're doing it, and I love it. Right now, let's get into the state of the Houston Texans. Okay. The Texans played a game that was cut short by weather. It was terminated in the third quarter, and so it will count as a loss to the Bears, 21-17. No starters really played in that game, so there's not a whole lot that can be derived as far as what the team will look like this season. There were some positives, I thought, from the game. Davis Mills looked good. He made a couple of off-schedule plays, which is not something we're really used to seeing him do. It looked like he had a good grasp of all of his route progressions, and he didn't get sacked. For the most part, they kept pressure off of him. He went 11 of 13, 102 yards, a touchdown, 0 interceptions. That's definitely a positive. I thought Xavier Hutchinson looked really nice. He had 5 receptions for 56 yards. Hopefully, he will be vying for that 4th, 5th, maybe 6th. I mean, I'm pretty sure Xavier Hutchinson will be on this roster as a wide receiver. But who's going to be that 4th guy after Tank, after Nico, after Stephon Diggs? That is the unanswered question right now. Will it be Hutchinson? Will it be Mechie? Mechie had 1 catch in the game, I believe. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see them even more throughout the preseason. But I thought those were positive. Some of the negatives, the Texans did not run the ball well. Now, once again, no starters were in the game. None of the starting offensive line was in the game. None of our starting running backs were in the game. But with this zone defense, with this zone running scheme, in the past, it's always seemed like it's kind of plug and play with the running back, as long as they know how to find their one cut and go. Struggled with running the ball a little bit in this game. I'm not going to panic too much. Like, it was a bunch of backups. A lot of the guys who were playing may not even be on this roster by the time it's all said and done. But I did think that was a negative in the game. But really, the weekend wasn't about the game. What the weekend was really about was Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson enters the Hall of Fame as the first Houston Texans Hall of Famer. Now, for those of us who watched Andre's career, we've always known that he was a Hall of Fame receiver. But it seems like receiver is always that one position that seems like it's very difficult. The bar is really unclear of what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame, especially first ballot versus second, third try. And it took 3 years for Andre, but he finally gets in. And we have a Hall of Famer as a Houston Texan. And I'll tell you this much. Let me find. Give me just a second. No, that's not the one I want to show. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties. If you're on the listening side, you'll have to bear with me. But Andre Johnson being in the Hall of Fame, that's no surprise to us. Because we all always felt like he should be there. I will be honest with you, though. I always wondered if and how long it would take Andre Johnson to get into the Hall of Fame, because, as I said before, for receivers, it just always seems kind of convoluted of what the criteria is. There are some really good wide receivers that are not currently in the Hall of Fame, the likes of Reggie Wayne, Andre Rison, Torrey Holt, Gary Clark, Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden, Hines Ward, and I think most notably Sterling Sharp. Although most people believe if he had played longer, he definitely would have gotten into the Hall of Fame by now. But people like Terrell Owens was kept out for a long time. Now, the reason I bring that up, and I want to kind of contrast the difference between why it took Terrell Owens as long as it did versus why it took Andre as long as it did. But after a 3-year wait, he's finally in. I think if there is one, I don't want to say flaw. If there's one surprising thing, even to me, who watched Andre Johnson for his entire career, about his career, it's the fact that he didn't score more touchdowns. Andre Johnson never scored double-digit touchdowns in any season, and he finished his 13-year career with 70 touchdowns. That's about 5 per season when you do the math. Look, only about 10 people in NFL history caught more balls than him. But let's face it, with his size, with his speed, with his strength, it's really surprising that he didn't have more touchdowns. And that is the one thing I always thought that maybe would be held against him. But you also have to factor in the quarterbacks who were throwing him the ball. The quarterbacks throwing to him rarely. If I show you guys, I'm going to play some more video of some of his highlights. Rarely do you see Andre Johnson catching a ball in stride, whether it's from David Carr, whether it's from Tony Banks, whether it's from Matt Schaub or Sage Rosenfels. I think he would have had a lot more touchdowns if he had quarterbacks who, when he got wide open, he could get hit in stride while he's running. There's so many highlights where Andre Johnson is all the way in the defensive backfield by himself, and then he has to wait on a throw to get to him, and that allows the defender to catch up. Otherwise, I think he could have probably easily had been closer to 100 touchdowns or so. I mean, some of the moves he put on some of these receivers with his size, his strength, his ability to go up and snatch the ball out of a crowd. I can remember so many times listening to sports radio post-game, oftentimes after a loss, and fans clamoring, wanting to know why in the world, when we're in the red zone, especially at the times in the Texans' history where they struggled to score touchdowns in the red zone because either the running game was not good or for some reason, everybody wanted to know, why don't they ever throw a fade route to Andre Johnson? He is the perfect, prototypical wide receiver to catch a fade route in the red zone. But it seems like they never did it. The few times they did do it, they were successful. Or why not line him up in that slot or in that tight end position and let him just use his size and his strength to score more touchdowns? It's a weird anomaly. And I honestly think that if Andre Johnson wasn't such a nice guy, Andre Johnson was extremely quiet on and off the field. He wasn't braggadocious. There wasn't a lot of flash. When he celebrated a touchdown, it was usually with a spike. Occasionally, he would jump into the crowd and celebrate with the fans. Most times, he would just hand the ball to the referee and get ready to ball out the next time the offense got the ball. So I don't know. It's one thing that I thought maybe would be held against him, but when you factor in the fact that he led the league in yards twice, led the league in catches, I believe 2 or 3 times, and you just look at the company that he's in, the Tim Browns, the Terrell Owens, the Chris Carters, with the amount of catches and receptions that he had. I mean, like I said, we all knew that he should be a Hall of Famer. And I believe that if he weren't such a nice guy, that maybe he would end up waiting longer because of the fact that he didn't score a lot of touchdowns. We all know the media, if they have a problem with you, they will hold a grudge. And I think that's part of the reason that Terrell Owens was not a first ballot Hall of Famer, and ended up throwing his own Hall of Fame ceremony rather than celebrating in Canton, because of some of the things that he had off the field. We never had that problem with Andre Johnson. As a matter of fact, Andre Johnson pretty much he was class personified. And he had a flawless record, except for that one time that we all know about. And that was the time that Andre Johnson gave Cortland Finnegan a Hall of Fame ass whooping. And for the listening audience, I'm going to show that clip really quick. If you close your eyes, you can see it in your head. Cortland Finnegan getting his helmet snatched off, and then Andre Johnson giving him that 2-piece spicy with an extra biscuit and some gravy. I I remember watching that game live, and it felt like it was inevitable, and it was a few years coming. And I will say, all week where they were showing Andre Johnson highlights, I'm pretty sure Andre Johnson probably got a hold on somebody and said, man, please don't show the fight, because I don't think we all knew Andre Johnson was not that guy. Andre Johnson probably didn't take pride in the fact that he lost his cool that day. But I think we've all been there. Even the most patient of us, we have a limit, and we can get to a point where we lose our cool from time to time. Andre Johnson wasn't perfect, never claimed to be perfect. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, what a stellar career, what a stellar reputation. Much deserved that he is in the Hall of Fame. And I got to tell you, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me about the weekend and the speech that Andre gave was when he shouted out the fans, because Houston Texans fans, for all the flack that we get and sometimes the flack that I give you, I got to tell you, man, you guys showed up in Canton and you made damn sure that Andre Johnson knew how appreciated he was. Let me play you this clip from the very end of his speech.
So appreciative of you guys. You guys have shown me so much love from the day I came to Houston, even to now, just being around the city. I was walking in the store to the Houston Texan fans. Jim Porter asked me if the Houston Texans were to get the game, how do you think the Houston fans would show up? I told him, you better get ready because we're going to show up and show out. I'm so appreciative of you guys. You guys have shown me so much love from the day I came to Houston, even to now, just being around the city. I was walking in the store the other day. A lady I don't even know. She didn't say, hey, Andre. She didn't say anything. All she said was, I see you in Canton. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys meant so much to my career. You guys motivated me. And I couldn't do a lot of things I did if I didn't have you guys cheering me on. I really appreciate you. Thank you. I'll end off with this. I'm happy as hell again to be your first Pro Football Hall of Famer.
I apologize for that initial technical difficulty, but what an awesome showing, man, from the fans. I was worried because, you know, there was some weather early on before the ceremony started. It was actually delayed like 45 minutes because of weather. And I was concerned because when the ceremony started, there was not very many people in the building. But Houston, you ended up showing up and showing out, man. And much deserved, man, to Andre Johnson. I got to tell you, I enjoyed watching his career. I'm reading the chat here, and Brian Smith says the best highlight of all time is from when Andre Johnson beat up Cortland Finnegan. And a lot of people feel that way, even though he might not. And I think he understands that most people give him grace for that. I think he also understands that, it was one bad moment, and of all the moments that he could have had that were not, that all the moments that he had that were wonderful, I think we kind of gave him a pass on that one. But yeah, man, I'm so privileged to have watched Andre Johnson. Always gave maximum effort, man. I think we all think about the play against Arizona where he catches the ball at about the 5-yard line. One guy bounces off of him, and then two guys try to keep him out of the end zone, and he just backpedals his way in there. And that's just the relentlessness and the strength and the power and the speed that he played with. And he very well may be the greatest Houston Texan of all time. I know that's debatable. We have another Houston Texan who should be in the Hall of Fame in maybe 3 years, unless he decides to come back and play again. But yeah, man, I just thought it was a really cool weekend. It was great to finally see one of our own get into the Hall of Fame. I thought it was really cool that he gave the last speech. I'm not going to be honest with you. I didn't watch anything else. I was doing work outside, and I kept coming back inside and checking if if his speech had come up yet. But that was really the highlight of the week. It was cool to watch the game. But I mean, it was really more about Andre Johnson this week. Now, the game coming up against the Steelers, I was just about to go on to P. Scott's podcast when I saw a press conference from Bobby Slowick and from D'Amico Ryan. So I actually have not had a chance to watch that yet. But I believe one of the reports I read is that we should see the starters in this game versus the Steelers, at least as far as the Texans are concerned, which will be nice. It'll be good to see CJ throw some balls to Tank again. It'll be good to see if there's any chemistry developed with Stephon Diggs. I'm really, really, really going to be hyper-focused with all these, with the addition of Stephon Diggs. I want to know how it's going to impact Nico Collins, because I think Nico Collins had a really good season last year. And I think Nico Collins has the potential to be a number one guy. I believe in CJ's ability to spread the ball out. If you get open, he's going to get it to you. I don't think he's going to try to force the ball to anybody. So that's the type of things I'll be looking for in this preseason game is how is CJ Stroud, how is he developed, how is he matured in his ability to spread the ball out and his ability to read defenses and his ability to maybe check out of certain plays. I'm looking forward to all of that all season. I don't know how much we're going to see in the preseason. From what I'm told, preseason offenses are usually pretty quote unquote vanilla. For the layman, listen, guys, I tell you guys all the time, I'm not a football expert. I'm a fan just like you. I really can't tell the difference between a vanilla offense and a not vanilla offense, at least not if I'm not at the game looking at all 22. From the TV, it all looks the same to me. But I'm really looking forward to seeing our starters out there, man. Football is getting ever so closer. I think with the fact that we have our first Hall of Famer in Canton, there's so much optimism around this team. And we've talked about some of the things that we might want to pump the brakes on planning the Super Bowl party and the parade, but there's still plenty of reason to be optimistic about the Houston Texans in the upcoming season. So I want to know how you guys feel about it. Maybe in the comments, tell me some of your favorite Andre Johnson moments, and just tell me how excited you guys are about the football season. Let me go into the comments here. My Pops is in the building. Pops, thank you so much for joining. Lowell Stevens says CJ's favorite receiver is the open one. And I could not agree with that more, Pop. That is one of the things I loved about watching CJ Stroud. I want you guys to tell me if maybe this is just me, but in Texans history, it's very rare that we've had a quarterback that every time he steps back to pass, you have a feeling that more than likely something good is going to happen. there were times in Deshaun Watson's career that I felt like that, even though with Deshaun, once again, being a layman, to me, it felt like Deshaun made a lot of things happen off schedule. I don't know how much of the offense that he was in really deserved credit for some of the numbers he was putting up. But usually, when Deshaun was his best in Houston, when he stepped back, I had a feeling he's going to make a good decision. He's going to make the right play. Something positive is going to happen. Every time CJ steps back in the pocket, I feel that way. I just feel like he's going to do something positive. Somebody's going to be open. Somebody's going to get the ball where they're supposed to get it, in the spot they're supposed to get it, in the location. He's not going to lead a receiver into getting hit. I just have the utmost confidence in what he can do. Brian Smith said game one, Case Keenum had that feeling, especially with the 3 touchdowns to 80. Matt Schaub could never. Let me keep scrolling. Oh, that's a, yeah. Yeah, I remember that game too. With Case Keenum throwing those 3 early touchdowns. If I'm not mistaken, didn't we end up losing that game though? I don't want to rain on the parade, but I feel like we ended up losing that game after Keenum threw those 3 early touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, that was for Andre Johnson, man. That was for somebody who, like I talked about earlier, didn't seem to get in the end zone as much as you would think he was supposed to. Once again, never had a double-digit touchdown season. When he got those 3 early ones, man, that was a really good feeling. That was a super good feeling. Yeah, that was the same game when Kubiak ended up having a stroke at halftime. Crazy, man. This team, you forget that it still feels like a young team, but like we've been around for 20 plus years now. Like this team has some history. That was a crazy time, man. Crazy time. But yeah, Brian, I appreciate you adding those thoughts though, and letting me know some of your favorite Andre Johnson moments. And you and I, we've talked some Astros. And a matter of fact, if you want, Brian, I know you said you had somewhere to be at 7:30. If you want to hop on for a couple of minutes when I do the Astros segment, I'd like to kind of pick your brain a little bit about some of the things we've talked about via text, but haven't had an opportunity to talk about in person. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the link in this chat right now if you want to join me, and we'll talk about it really quick. Yeah, I'm going to send you the link right there. As a matter of fact, if you guys give me just a couple of minutes, I'm going to put you guys on hold, and I will come back with Brian, and we will do the state of the Houston Astros. Okay, we are back, and I have Ryan. He's coming through on the audio side. Wasn't prepared to do video, which I understand, man. This is a last minute thing, but thank you for joining me, dude. How you feeling?
Good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. State of the Houston Astros. I wanted to bring you in on this topic because I think you feel a little bit more saucy about the Astros than you're feeling about the Texans right about now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the Astros are, it's a train wreck one day, it's great the next, and it's a train wreck the following day.
It's funny that you say that because that is what I have in my notes here. First we celebrated them getting over 500 because for a while that felt like was not going to happen. And then after that, we celebrated the fact that they took the lead in the division
And then once they did that, it's really been mediocre ever since. And, you know, I've talked about on this show multiple times, what's Dana Brown going to do in that situation? Is he going to make that move that puts them over the top? And I think because the Astros have done it so many times, I think the fans expected, hey, they'll just be able to do it again. They'll be able to find a Justin Verlander or a Zach Greinke in 2019, or, you know, find some piece that puts us over the top. Well, what we ended up with was Yusei Kikuchi and Caleb Ferguson. And I think both of those pitchers both had ERAs above 5 when we acquired them. Caleb Ferguson hasn't done much to help himself out in that regard with his first 2 appearances in an Astros uniform. But they give up Jake Bloss, Joey Leperfido, Will Wagner, and Kelly Austin to acquire those 2. And I will let the audience know the first text message I got after that trade went down was from Brian Smith, and he said, fire Dana Brown immediately. Do you still feel that way, Brian?
I feel better about it after seeing Kikuchi's outing. My biggest takeaway from the entire trade was not having control over Kikuchi at all. He's a short-term rental, and we basically gave up a rookie in Bloss with, you know, high upside, probably higher upside than Kikuchi.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it to get an innings eater. I get it that the market was very, very rough for buyers. But other teams made out a lot better than we did and had to give up a lot less.
Yeah.
Loperfido, you know, he's a star in the making, I think. He's not there yet. He's got to get some of his batting and see where his bat's going to be. I think he would have been a great left or right fielder, depending on where you want to stick him. But
my biggest fear is Loperfido becomes Martinez. What's his first name? I hate when I forget names.
He
ended up going to Detroit and then playing for Boston after he left us. Rodriguez.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing too. Yeah, we're doing the same thing. It's cool. Yeah, but that's my biggest fear is it's one of those guys who just wasn't doing much here. And he didn't have as much time as Martinez did with the Astros. He was here for a couple of years and just for some reason it didn't pan out here. And then all of a sudden blew up when he left. But that's the big fear, right? That you give up, you know, a guy like that for what could be a 1-year rental. And then all of a sudden these guys end up turning into all-stars. I don't know if Leperfido is going to be an all-star. Jake Bloss, to me, is the one that hurt. And I know you got to give up something that hurts to get something back in return, right? But I think the consensus from a lot of people is they felt like the Astros gave up too much. I'm glad you mentioned really quick Kikuchi's first outing because I feel like it was pretty good. I wish he would have ate up a few more innings. He went 5 2/3. I think when he left, the bases were loaded, but he ended up only giving up 2 runs, 3 hits, one of those a homer, and 11 strikeouts, including a franchise record tying 8 consecutive Ks. If he does that, in your opinion, just as a fan, I don't think he's going to strike out 11 every game, but we know he's a good strikeout pitcher. If we get that type of effort from him consistently, do you feel like that is enough to make you confident going into a playoff series? That's assuming we get there, but confident in this rotation going into a playoff series.
Does it? It does from a standpoint of his pitch selection. He was using changeup a lot more, which is a great pitch for him. Nobody could pretty much hit it. That's why he racked up all those Ks.
Yeah.
I'd rather see him eat more innings than get more Ks. You know, with more strikeouts comes more pitches. If he could have gone deeper into that game, that would have been great. And I feel like in the playoffs, you're definitely not going to want to throw as many pitches as you can. Typically outings are short on, you know, quite a bit, like 5 innings at most, which would be good in his case for that line.
Yeah.
But do I feel good about it in the long run? No, he really needs to get more longevity in his innings and rather, you know, just become more of a little bit of a contact pitcher.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. I think, like I said, we were looking for a put us over the top move, especially with the Seattle adding Randy Arozarena.
A whole new team, basically.
Yeah. That's the thing. Seattle addressed their need. And yes, we addressed one of our needs, which was a starting pitcher. To me, getting rid of Montero, bringing in Caleb Ferguson. Now, if you're getting good Caleb Ferguson, then yeah, that's an upgrade. But I mean, if you're getting good Montero, that's an upgrade. To me, you let go of Montero and you bring in a guy. Montero had a 4+ ERA with like a 140 something whip, but Caleb Ferguson's whip is like 153, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's 1.53. He's got a 5.5 ERA, 45 strikeouts and 1 save. I don't know that's. I mean, unless they saw something, when they're watching his film, I'm just not sure that those two alone are going to be enough to put them over the top, especially when now all of a sudden, ever since that trade was made, now all of a sudden the Astros can't score. So it would have been nice if they addressed that. What do you think?
I for the most part, the Astros are really good about turning mediocre pitchers coming from other teams into pretty decent, relievers and starters.
Yeah.
You can see that with Charlie Morton back in the day. You can see that with Ryan Stanek, who's not doing so well now.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel better about that. Now, the fun thing about Montero is even though they released him, he's back in AAA because he cleared waivers. So
yeah, we
still technically own him. If he does straighten up, we'll get him back, and that's always a good thing, especially for the playoffs since he has experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Am I blown away by Ferguson? No, but the jury's still kind of out.
He's real good on MLB The Show. I'll tell you that. I've added him on the team. In the video game, he's great. But yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what we did during the trade deadline. It didn't put us over a hump. We were going to have to get lucky, and most of our bats are going to have to come back alive because less than 3 runs in the last couple of games is not going to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the numbers today. We have 3 above average hitters with Tucker out. When he comes back, he would be a 4th. And I'm including Yiner in that, who Yiner's had his struggles off and on throughout the season too. But everybody else is either painfully average or below average. And the problem for me is that when you have the likes of Chas McCormick, who's not been great this season, that's somebody you were relying on. Mauricio Dubon hasn't been great. That's somebody you were relying on. And then Bregman, I honestly don't worry about Bregman because I feel like that dude balls out at the right time. Like, I could see him, going into September and all of a sudden hitting 300 plus. I don't know why. That's the type of player I think he is. I think he's a good regular season player. And then when it's clutch time, for some reason, he just always takes the next step. So, I don't know. For me though, right. I don't know, man. You called me or texted me a while back, and you said you and I might owe the Astros an apology. I'm just not quite ready to go there yet, man. Obviously, they are not in the depths that they were in, but I think now they're back to a game and a half behind Seattle. And unless something dramatically changes, man, I think that gap might start getting wider again. What are your thoughts?
The dramatic change needs to be the curious case of Kyle Tucker. We have no idea what's going on with him. A bone bruise on your shin, and you're out for 3 months.
Yeah,
probably
that's
not
crazy.
Back until the playoffs.
Yeah,
that's crazy in a contract year. And then maybe getting Verlander back, and he might be the one to put us over the top again with the solid outing.
Yeah, for sure.
We're only 2 games back. It's not insurmountable, but we're not slumping at the right time, or we're slumping at the wrong time, especially after a team just got really good after making a bunch of moves. So.
Yeah, and even the Rangers, I mean, they didn't do anything mind blowing, but they added some pieces. They're still trying to make a run at it too. So at least we can say it's going to be interesting, man. That's for sure. It is going to be interesting. But I always enjoy talking baseball with you, bud. I know that you had some things going on. I appreciate your support, man. I appreciate you been watching the ESPN video and trying to get my votes and my views up. I appreciate that as well. And you've been actually keeping me updated on what's going on. I tried. If I if I fall into the habit of refresh every 10 minutes, man, I'll be stuck with my phone in my hand. So, but all you guys have been looking out for me, and I really appreciate it, man. And I hope we get the opportunity to do this again, maybe in studio. Next time I'll try not to catch you off guard so we can see your beautiful face.
You got it, man. Anytime.
All right, Bubba, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
I'd see you.
All right, that is my good friend Brian Smith. Listeners of the show, he is the stepfather of my daughter's boyfriend, so we have a very awesome relationship. I like when we can talk sports. We've gone out to lunch. We're supposed to go out to lunch twice, but we only made it once. But I always enjoy talking baseball with him. He is what I consider a very level-headed. What's the word that P. Scott used earlier on his show? He used a term to describe the type of fan that I am. I don't remember the exact term, but it's basically level-headed. And the way I put it is I'm a cautiously optimistic fan. We're not going to live and die with every win, every loss. We try to keep our head level and keep it cool, but understand that, I mean, look, the Astros have set a standard. There's a reason that when they jumped out to the slow start that they jumped out to, people kind of started to panic a little bit. I mean, over the last decade, they have set a standard that we expect them to win. And we expect them to win big. We expect them to boat race the division. And in some ways, the division is caught up. And also in combination with the Astros have probably regressed a little bit. A lot of it's due to injuries. He brought up Verlander, and I think that's a very good point. If we get good Verlander back, if we keep good Fromber, if we get serviceable Brown, and we get anything close to what we got from Kikuchi, which I agree with him, I would trade some of those Ks for eating up some more innings. But all of a sudden, if it's a big if our bullpen can pitch the way they're supposed to. Look, if the bullpen can pitch the way they're supposed to, and if our bats can hit the way that we are accustomed to, don't get me wrong, this lineup is not as good as some of the lineups the Astros have had in the past. Jake Myers, Chas McCormick, Dubon, like they're just not hitting very good right now. And I mean, we're relying on the likes of Trey Cabbage. It was Joey Leperfido before he left. It's not a murderer's row, so they're going to need the pitching to pitch the way that I think they anticipated it would. It's been announced officially, and I think really the official announcement was a couple of weeks ago. Speaking of pitchers, Lance McCullers is more than likely not going to pitch this season. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. I remember when he was throwing innings and he had a little bit of a setback, I said that's probably going to be it. I don't know what the Astros should do about Lance McCullers. I know he's got his own vineyard / wine, I think, that he's making. Brian does mention Pedro Leon. He's 1 for 9 so far, but we'll be patient with him. He was hitting really well when he was in AAA. He says Pedro Leon came up a couple of days ago, possible spark. Dak Dizenzo, starting a DH tonight, which that game, I think that first pitch is probably happening very soon, isn't it? Which I will let you guys get out of here and watch the Astros game. I don't want to interrupt Astros fans from cheering on the team. Yeah, it's actually in the bottom of the first right now. 0-0. Let's see. Astros number 4 prospect coming in, hoping he gets the bat going. That would be great. And then he brings up Lance McCullers Jr. Isn't going anywhere unless he sucks. Still have him for 2 more years, so we'll see. I don't think he's going to have to pitch for us to know if he sucks or not. And now, listen, Lance McCullers, one of the reasons the Astros were able to get him is because his injury history, or potential for injury, kind of dropped his draft stock anyway. That's why they were able to get him and Carlos Correa in the same draft. I just don't know, man. this is what we do know. We're not going to be able to rely on him. That's one of the arms I was hoping would come in and settle things down. And, you know, Luis Garcia is supposed to be possibly returning, but coming off of Tommy John, we don't know how he's going to look, man. And the risk of him re-injuring himself. We've talked about before with the pitch clock, the amount of time that these pitchers do not have to rest in between pitches. It just seems like arms are getting shredded, man. I don't want to be pessimistic about the Astros. If I had to give the Houston Astros a grade, the state of the Houston Astros, I'd say right now it's a little, we'll call it uncertain. I don't want to say shaky. The state of the Houston Astros is uncertain. I hope that, as we talked about, maybe Verlander comes in, maybe Luis Garcia comes in and gives them a boost in the bullpen. Maybe, as Brian mentioned, our pitching coaches can help Caleb Ferguson turn some things around. Although, in my estimation, I would give most of the credit. He brought up Charlie Morton. I mean, that was when Brent Strom was here, though. Since Brent Strom has left, I know we've had success with our bullpen since he's left and with our starting pitchers, but it's a different field to me. It felt like when Brent Strom was here, the Astros could bring in anybody, and all of a sudden he would turn them at least into a decent and serviceable either bullpen arm or starter. But I don't know, man. I would say the state of the Houston Astros right now is a little bit uncertain. We're not going to panic. I mean, they're only a game and a half back, or maybe 2 games now. If they can get even in this series with the Texas Rangers, keep the Texas Rangers at bay, and keep the Mariners close by. One thing we know about the Astros, man, is you can never count them out. You can never count them out. Just when you think you should, they prove that you should not. So I'm going to give them an uncertain grade right now as far as the state of the Houston Astros goes. But it still remains to be seen. But here's the thing. It's still a great time to be a sports fan in the city of Houston. We know that the Astros are always going to give maximum effort. We celebrated the fact that Andre Johnson went into the Hall of Fame because of his maximum effort. Really quick, I know this is not sports related, but to all my nerds out there, I'm going to try to give a relatively spoiler-free review of Deadpool and Wolverine. Brian, let me know if you saw the movie. I thought it was excellent. And I know there's been mixed reviews. We live in a world where people want to be outraged about any and everything. I've seen some people... Okay, Brian says he's not seen it, so I won't spoil it for you. I've seen some people lament the fact that it's not a movie that quote-unquote Christians should go to. I mean, well, it's a rated R film, so that tells you that there's probably going to be some language. There might be a little bit of violence. And if you are someone who believes that those are things that you should not be entertained by, then you probably don't want to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. I feel like some people go to watch things with the intent of being outraged. And I just don't understand that. There's also been some backlash from some of the other MCU alum who thought maybe they should have played a bigger role in the movie, namely She-Hulk and Captain Marvel. How do I do this tactfully? The MCU, if you guys are fans of the MCU, has had strong female characters that did not have to force their empowerment in a way that made it seem disingenuous. I'll give you a perfect example. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is just a badass superhero. There's really no agenda when it comes to her being a badass. You kind of just see her as one of the guys. There's no forced recognition of her womanhood. It's known, it's expressed. Like, she's just a badass. I feel the same way about Pepper Potts. I feel the same way about who else? Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel the same way about the female army in Wakanda. Like, those are just powerful, badass female characters. She-Hulk and Captain Marvel just felt really, really agenda-ish. It was like and I don't even mind if you want to have that agenda, fine. Like, if you want to make a girl power movie, cool. Just make sure it's a good movie. Like, there still has to be good writing. There still has to be a good storyline. It still has to be a connection with the audience. Both Captain Marvel and the Marvels completely missed on that. I watch all of the movies because I want to give them a chance. And I enjoy watching strong female characters. But Deadpool and Wolverine, there's been some backlash because for some reason they don't believe there were enough strong female characters, even though the main villain is a pretty badass female who, like, I got to tell you, man, she terrified the crap out of me in that entire movie. Like, I thought she was awesome. I thought I thought the movie was fantastic. I'm not going to spoil it. As you guys know, there's a lot of cameos. If you don't want it spoiled, stay off the internet because they are showing everything. It's a fantastic movie. Between it and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I made a post on social media where I said, dare I say that the MCU is back. That may have been a little bit of hyperbole because of the feeling I felt when I left that movie, but I'm going to see it again in theaters. I'm going to pay my money to see it again. And that is always a litmus test for me. But I feel like the writers, everyone at Marvel and Disney definitely gave maximum effort when it came to that movie. Brian Smith says MCU seen the writing on the wall, unfortunately, with female characters and their own movies. Yeah. And maybe that's a problem. Maybe they should invest better writing. The problem is that with a lot of these female characters, they're allowing women to write them. But maybe it's just not the right combination of writers and not the right combination of storytelling. I don't know, man. I'm still hopeful. I'm a big geek when it comes to the MCU. I'm sitting here talking about it on the sports podcast. But since the theme of the show was maximum effort, I thought I would give my review of Deadpool versus Wolverine. Ranking in Marvel movie rank. I think it was better than Spider-Man No Way Home. Whatever that means to you. I know some people loved that movie. Some people not so much. Probably not as good as Infinity War and Endgame. I would say just as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 3. To me, Guardians 3 and Deadpool, I feel like at this moment, I feel like they could definitely be saviors of the MCU. But yeah, I did think it was better than Spider-Man No Way Home. I think every movie has plot holes. I think the plot holes of this movie are far less obvious than the plot holes of Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, let's face it, the whole everybody forgetting, listen, I know this is part of the comic book, but everybody forgetting who Peter Parker is versus forgetting who Spider-Man is really Peter Parker, and the whole process of getting to that being the solution to all of the problems when there was probably 20 different better solutions before you ever got to that point. I get it. It's a comic book movie and it is on par with the way things worked in the comic books, but in every movie, like I said, has plot holes. I feel like the plot holes in Deadpool and Wolverine are a little less obvious. They exist. They're there. And there are plenty of people who are comic book nerds who can fill those holes in many more ways than I possibly can. And maybe one day I'll start a movie podcast where we can talk about all of those things. But in the meantime, I just want to say it's worth your time. Brian, go see the movie. If you've caught up on everything MCU, and if you're a big fan of some of the Marvel movies that Fox produced, it's the perfect combination of I would say I saw one critic call it a love letter to the fans, and I think that accurately describes the film. So yeah, maximum effort for the MCU on Deadpool and Wolverine. I'll be seeing the movie again because I thoroughly enjoyed it. All right, so I've been going for about an hour now. I appreciate everybody who hung in. I appreciate Brian Smith for coming on and joining the conversation. I appreciate everybody who was in the chat that joined the conversation. My pops, Lowell Stevenson, P. Scott, I saw you hop in for just a little bit. Thank you for having me on your show. If you guys want to go check out Chopping It Up with P. Scott, I literally did his show about 10 minutes before I hopped on this. We talked some more Houston Texans and a little bit of Houston Rockets on that. I don't really have a state of the Houston Rockets for this week. I am looking forward to talking to Lashard Binkley possibly next week. I know next week the show is on Tuesday. Mike Duncan is going to come back to talk some soccer. I know we're going to talk Dynamo and USA Soccer, I believe. So I'm looking forward to that. And guys, I just want to remind you that I'm trying to get the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast produced and published on ESPN Houston's YouTube channel. Right now, the last time I checked, I was in the lead. Actually, got the videos going right now. From what I gather, I'm going to give you guys a live update. Currently, I am leading views with somewhere between 396, 398. I don't exactly know how YouTube and its algorithms work. Also, somehow, mysteriously, my video, like the last 48 seconds, got cut off of it. I don't know if that was a decision by ESPN. I reached out to them to see, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any violation of YouTube rules or something like that, because if I make the next round, I want to make sure I don't repeat that mistake. But thank you guys so much for supporting me, watching the video. Please continue to do so. If you haven't hit like on it yet, please hit like. We're going to do this thing together. I will not win this competition without your help, and I promise you guys I will not let you down. I will continue to put maximum effort into the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, and I hope you guys will continue to rock with me, man. I really do. So once more, let me remind you really quickly of the ways you can support this show. One of them you've been doing this entire time. You listen, you watch, you share with your friends and family. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts fixed. The audio version of this show will be available about an hour after this live finishes, and that's generally the case each week. So guys, just keep listening. That's really the best way you can support me. Keep listening, keep sharing. And everybody who does that, I really, really appreciate it. Also, there's a tip jar. There's a link in the description, or you can use the QR code right here in the corner. If you're watching, anything you leave me goes directly back into the show. And if you leave a donation of $50 or more, I will give you a Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt or hat, whatever your preference is. Don't forget to screenshot when you send that donation, because it is anonymous. So I need you to screenshot it and send it to me either in my DMs, or you can email me at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. And that way I know it was you and I know where to send the t-shirt. And then there's affiliate links in the description of this video. We've got Houston Sports fan gear, and we've got the podcast equipment on Amazon. These are Amazon affiliates. All of the podcast equipment that I use to bring you this show. If you're interested in podcasting and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder what Nick Stevenson uses. Well, I have everything in the description. And if you purchase from that link, I will get a commission from that. Lastly, once again, sponsorship. I do have one spot available for sponsorship. If you would like for me to represent your business, have us grow our businesses together, I would love to do so. So let's talk about it. You can email me at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, overall, the State of the Union in Houston is extremely strong. Lots of optimism. Even with the Astros, even though they're at a down spot right now, we have seen this team pick themselves up off the floor before. I'm extremely excited to see how the rest of that season goes. I'm ready for football. I'm ready for basketball. Guys, I will see you guys next week on Tuesday. In the meantime, you know what I want you to do. I want you to stay 10 toes down for H-Town. I love you guys. Good night.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.